So I'm really excited to move us into our next session, which is winning customer service. Here to present is Colleen Koenig, who's the former director of Senior Home Care Services, which was a 20-year family-owned home care agency in New Jersey that actually just sold. And Colleen wore many hats in her time there, and this is one that she really champions. So very excited to have her here and sharing her knowledge with us. So thank you so much, Colleen. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Katrina. Can everyone hear me okay? Just give me a little thumbs up. Okay, excellent. And you can see my screen. Okay, great. Then we're off to a start. First off, I just want to say thank you to the ICA group for inviting me to be a part of this conference. And it's been a pleasure to join as a participant as well and hear some of your stories. And I know 2020 was a really tough year for a lot of people. Unfortunately, a lot of that toughness has continued to follow us into 2021. I have a little sign behind me that I've carried with me ever since my days in home care that says, you don't have to be crazy to work here, we'll train you. Because we're all a little bit crazy. This can be a very tough industry, but I started out my career in property management and commercial real estate and wanted to do something more with my career than just taking rent checks from people. So, I know a lot of you are in this to give back to your communities, your caregivers, your seniors, people with disabilities. And, thank you for everything you've done this past year. And hopefully we'll get through it as an industry and come out stronger on the other side and more prepared for things to come. So thank you so much, and we'll go ahead and dive in. So just a little background on myself. As Katrina mentioned, former director of Senior Home Care Services, which was a family-owned and operated agency that was in business for 20 years, and we just sold at the end of December. And this business was started by my father. So I like to say that I grew up in home care. And even though I've worked in it 7 years full time, I've actually been around the business for 20 years and worked on and off. So I've really seen the industry grow and develop and change a lot in the last 20 years. And obviously we've had even more significant and rapid change within the last year with everything going on. But as Katrina said, I've worn many hats, as I'm sure everyone in home care has. No one has been in this business and just done one job with one job description. So that's not possible in home care. But I have actively sat and been a recruiter. I've been a scheduler. I've done sales myself. I've done the marketing piece from the back end. I've managed a home care company, and I've worked on the administration side. So I like to say I've done everything but actually being the caregiver. And today I own the Home Care Consultant LLC, and I consult with home care companies and other businesses, currently working also on the side on a recruitment platform. So I hear you guys, Teresa and your team, that recruitment is definitely an issue. We know this, and definitely excited about some projects there. So I'll loop back with you guys as we make some progress. But today we're going to be focusing on customer service and delivering that customer service. My agency that I came from was a very high touch, high end boutique care agency that strictly did private pay. I know a lot of you guys do public funding. You also do private. I think there's a little bit of a focus on this year's conference on the private pay side and how can we potentially grow that part of our business or enter into that part of the business. So that's my background, is all private pay. God bless all of you that do the public funding. I know it requires a lot of paperwork and things like that. So you're doing a great job, but there's a lot of great good that can be done on the private side as well. So we're gonna just touch on a few home care fundamentals first, and then we're gonna talk about how to deliver winning customer service. And we're actually gonna walk through the process of a prospect getting that inquiry call or that inquiry email. How do we handle that? What's the do's and don'ts? Then we have the client. How do we make sure we take them from a client to a happy client? And how do we get a happy client to give us that 5-star review at the end of services or during services? So let's talk a little bit first about the home care fundamentals, because without these, we can't provide good customer service. So we have to kind of make sure the business is set from the beginning. So this is a little equation that we run our business by, which was people plus process equals profit, right? So We have to have good people. We have to have good processes. And without either one of those or both of those combined, we won't have or see the profits that we want to see. So first and foremost, and I probably don't have to tell a home care cooperative group this, but you know this, your people are everything to your business. This is not a business where we are selling pens or paper. We don't have a product, right? Our product is a service, and that service is delivered by caregivers. And so our caregivers are the core of what we do. And so I think it's important for everyone to recognize, and you guys probably have this, but some of the private pay agencies that aren't cooperatively set up, don't always take the right steps for their people. And I think what I've learned in this business is people want to be great team players. They want to do a good job. They want to be a great caregiver or a great employee, but they need certain things in order to do that, right? They need clear goals. They need processes to follow. They need to be supported when they make mistakes. We are humans. We will make mistakes as managers or as caregivers. And they need recognition for their achievements when they have them. And the little things make a difference. And, you'll hear that said time and time again, but I want to give you some examples. So for management teams, right, your management team has to have trust. Most of you are probably working in cooperative models. You maybe have a few people that are designated as managers. Maybe that's 5, maybe that's 10 at the most. Typically, a home care management team is pretty small. They should be like your family. Those people you should be able to trust and rely on, and make sure that you're in constant communication, and that if one of you needs the day off, the other one can pick up that slack and provide that great care for those clients without any interruption. So one of the things that we did at our agency is that all of our managers managed all clients. I know some agencies split clients. If you have a smaller private pay side to your business, I would suggest managing it collectively. And the point basically there is just, if one person needs a day off, there really shouldn't be this massive we can't talk to you about that until tomorrow because so-and-so is on vacation. Because on the private pay side, they are expecting a higher level of customer service. And, they want to make sure that you know what's going on with their loved one, no matter who's in the office. And then with the caregivers, a lot of you are caregivers. You come to this from the caregiver's perspective. Think about what you want during that time, support, recognition, all of those things. But as your caregivers that are becoming managers or managing other caregivers, you have to keep those things in mind. And one of the examples of something you can do is, for example, around Christmas, we had a lot of live-in caregivers. About half of our business was live-in. And I would call the caregivers every Christmas, the week of Christmas, to thank them. Just say thank you for staying on the case. Thank you for being with your client during the holidays. I know it's difficult to be away from your family, right? It's just the little things of being recognized. Every time we would go to a client's house, we would bring the caregiver a present. No matter how small, they always got something when they saw us. So it's just those little pieces that start to help to build your people up and allow them to feel motivated to deliver that great customer service to your clients. So people plus process. Process is the second piece of that. Processes are essential to any business. But they can only be successful if they're applied to normal, repeatable tasks or things that come up. So, an inquiry call, that's a repeatable process. The person on the other side is going to say different things, but overall the process we can follow is similar for those calls or those emails that come in from new prospects. And I think managers and people who are taking calls and dealing with these situations, they appreciate being given a process, being told, look, let's talk, let's come up with a process, let's put it together and let's implement it. Because it gives everyone the sense that we're all moving. We always say we're rowing the boat in the same direction. That's why I'm going like this. But everyone needs to be rowing the boat in the same direction. If people are rowing the boat like this, then the business isn't moving forward. So everybody needs to kind of have the process and buy in to that process, right? Believe that that process works so that you can use it to move forward. However, I want to caveat it with a very important fact, which is that in home care, situations will always come up that cannot be processed. There are always going to be things that happen that are out of the norm. And it is important to encourage everybody on the team to think beyond the process. So, okay, if I've been told to do steps 1, 2, and 3, and I've done them, but I don't feel like the situation is resolved, I need to go a step further and I need to bring in another team member or think beyond that process. So people plus process should bring you profits. Profits is not a dirty word. I know a lot of people are in this industry to give back. Oh, sorry, we have a fire department across the street. So I'm not sure if you can hear those fire engines, but they're very loud. Another great example of people giving back. But profit is going to keep your business going, right? Without profits, you can't continue to do what you do. You can't continue to provide jobs. You can't continue to provide great care to your clients. So try not to think of it as such a dirty word, and think about it as something that helps the business grow, helps provide more care to more people, helps provide better jobs to people, and reduces stress on everybody in the equation. All right, so now that we have the fundamentals covered, we're going to talk about some of those processes that you can implement specifically for private pay clients, okay? Because I know the intake process is very different in public pay scenarios, but in private pay scenarios, we're going to talk about how to take somebody from a prospect to a client. And we're going to review an inquiry process. We're going to talk about your value proposition, and then we're going to talk about educating your customer, not selling your customer. So I always say you need an unbreakable inquiry process. What does that mean? So the first thing is you need to decide when an inquiry comes in from a prospect or a potential client, who's on first, right? Let's say you have 5 managers in your office. One person should be designated as the primary. One person should be the secondary, but you can't stop there. A lot of people stop there. One thing that we found very important is that every person in the office who is answering a phone needs to know how to take a prospect call. And I'll tell you why. Because if I take the prospect call and I say, oh, I'm sorry, Sally's busy, she's going to have to call you back. I send Sally an email. Sally's on the road all day visiting clients. She doesn't see it till 6 o'clock. She calls them the next day. What's happened in those hours? That person picked up the phone and called the next agency because they didn't feel like their problem was solved, like you were taking care of it and they were moving forward to getting the care they need, right? So it's very important that everyone in your office know how to take these calls. And that can be a little bit uncomfortable because a lot of people feel uncomfortable with these sales calls. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make it easier on everyone. It's important to create a standard process, whether you have an email inquiry or call inquiries, or sometimes people are getting inquiries by Facebook. With Facebook and email and different things like that, there's often ways to set up automatic replies. If you can't copy and paste, make something that's easy, but they should always be responded to within an hour. That's something that's very important, is responding to those inquiries. I would say during business hours. Outside of business hours, it can be the next business day for an email inquiry. For calls, business basics, you got to answer your phone. I can't tell you how many home care agencies I call that don't answer their phones and it goes to voicemail. You have to answer your phone in private pay home care, because if you put yourself in that person's shoes, they're looking for someone to care for their loved one, right? And if I make my first call to your agency and you don't answer your phone, I'm going to be thinking, well, what happens when mom falls or mom has an emergency or I need to speak to them about something urgent? Are they not going to answer the phone? It's just a bad precedent. So you need to always make sure you're answering your phone, have your phones, forwarded. If you step out of the office, you need to get those processes in place. And I do recommend considering having either a separate line for clients, a separate phone number, or an option that you can, basically the idea is you want to know when it's a client versus a caregiver calling, not because clients are more important than caregivers, but because you can very kindly say to a caregiver who's on your team, they're a team member of yours, can you please hold, a client is calling and I need to pick this up. And we did that process and it was definitely helpful in making sure we could always answer the client calls. Don't leave people on hold very long. 30 seconds is a very long time to be left on hold. I actually thought about sitting here for 30 seconds in silence and making you all feel what 30 seconds feels like, but I promise you, some of you might leave the webinar because it really is a long time when you're sitting on hold, especially if you don't have music or something set up on there. So once again, that goes back to everybody should be able to take that call. So if Sally's on the phone and she's busy, you got to take that call anyway. And that's where your call inquiry sheet comes in. And I think Katrina can make these available to everyone as a take home after. I gave it to you guys in a PDF or a Word document form, but this was very integral to our process at our agency. Everybody had a call sheet folder on their desk and lots of copies of their call sheets. And basically the idea of the call sheet is just to take your prospect information. And I'm sure most of you are doing this in some form, right? But I'm going to talk to you about a few reasons why I like my process. One is that it's not on a computer, and I am very tech savvy, and I normally like computers. My bookshelf, actually, the only thing on it is an iPad. But when you are on the phone with someone and you are talking to them about their loved one, you need to be making a connection with that person. You need to be having a conversation. They need to be a human on the other end of the phone. You cannot be a robot putting information into a system, because what happens is you lose that humanity piece. So for me, I found that writing on the call sheet and then transferring the information into my system just made me better at what I was doing. So just something to consider. The other things about this call sheet is it has lots of places for you to fill in the information on the left-hand side as you're having that conversation and getting to know that person on the other end of the line. But on the right-hand side, it has important information about your business. And this is part of empowering each manager to feel comfortable to take these calls. So a little bit about you. What are your top 5 selling points that make you a great agency or a great business, right? And we'll talk about how you're going to develop those in a second. Your service area. Lots of us are geographically challenged. What areas do we service? Is your town in that service area? Very important. You don't want to waste a prospect's time going through a whole 30-minute call to then find out you can't help them. And then your rates. I'm a big fan of rate ranges in private pay, not necessarily having a set pay rate, but however your agency does it, you should have your rates designated, whether it's a range or specific rate, so that each person taking the call is giving out the same information and being fair to everybody that they're talking to, and not trying to remember off the top of their head what they charged, most recently. And then last but not least, on the bottom left is a little piece to hold you accountable for the next steps, right? So if I have a really great prospect call and I take all this information and then I put it down and I forget about it, right? Nothing happens, and that's not a good system. So I have, just some check marks, and you can make these personal to your own system and your own processes. Maybe it's, did you put this prospect in ClearCare? Check. But for me, I just put, did I send them a follow-up email? Did I set a meeting? When is the meeting date and time? Who is the employee that's going to that meeting? Did I tell that employee and send them a calendar link, right? So there's all these sort of little pieces, and all of them have to happen in order to make that a great call to a great meeting. And from a great meeting, this is where we get to talk a little bit more about our value proposition. You can do this over the call, you can do this at the meeting, however you're speaking with your clients. It's important for you as an agency to understand who you are and what is your value proposition. So a value proposition is made up of price, service, or product, which in this case we have service, and warranty. And the way I like to think about it is anybody who's looking to engage your services, right? Let's say they're calling 3 agencies. How are they assessing those agencies? Okay, right? Some of it is on the connection they have, but ultimately they make their decision on, does the price, the service, and the warranty make sense to me? Does all of that come together and make me feel comfortable, like it's a good value for me to move forward with this agency? So your prices, like I said, I'm a big fan of ranges in private pay, pricing based on the situation in terms of the number of hours, the location, et cetera. But a lot of people do have a set price, which is okay too. Your service is all the great things about your caregivers, right? What do you provide? Hourly or living care? Who do you provide that with? Do you have certified caregivers? Are you accredited? Are you licensed? These are all parts of your service. And then your warranty goes into, and to speak a little bit to the COVID piece, this was instrumental in continuing our service during COVID, is letting clients know what our warranty was, right? And warranty can include things like, pre-COVID, it would be something like, when my caregiver calls out, what happens? When I call on the weekend because, mom has an issue, who's answering that phone? Is it a call service? Is it one of your managers? Do they know me? During COVID, it became a lot about, are you providing PPP? Are you able to, or PPE, excuse me, are you able to, discuss your COVID protocols? Like for us, we used ClearCare. And so we set up a protocol where before every shift, every caregiver clocked in they would answer questions about their symptoms. They would answer if they needed any more PPE. They answered these things. And so we could explain that to the client and they would understand why we were charging a little bit extra during COVID, because we have put all these systems in place to help provide a better service and a better warranty. So a little exercise for after, you can always just think about your company and what is your value proposition. And then last but not least, when you're on that call or meeting with that family, just remember, sales, you're not selling. You cannot sell someone something in home care that they do not need. Okay, so you are not a dirty salesperson. You're not a car salesperson. Somebody needs help and they contacted you, right? So you're not doing anything wrong by selling to them. They want you to sell to them. They are looking for your services. They just want you to educate them on what those services are, how they work, what the process is, and how you're going to help solve their problem. So your role is just to listen, to empathize with their situation, and to educate them, to walk them through, this is our process. After we get off the phone today, we're going to meet with you. After we meet with you, our nurse will come out and do an assessment. After our nurse does an assessment, our caregiver will start the case. After our caregiver starts the case, we'll communicate with you on a regular, it's those processes, and families who have never had home care before don't know what home care entails. So you have to educate them. You have to walk them through that process. And by doing that, you are selling yourself, but you're selling yourself in a way that is not, we are a great agency. We have been in business 20 years. This is why you should go with us. You're not pushy. Never be pushy in home care sales, first of all. Never be pushy. You're just there to listen, empathize, and educate. So it's not a dirty situation. Somebody called you, they need your help. All right, let's say you got the client because you did all those things right, okay? So how do we get the client to be a happy client in private pay? So what are the happy client fundamentals? What does focusing on the first week mean? Because it's very critical. And how do we create a culture of caring? These are what I see as the happy client fundamentals in private pay: good care, good communication, and correct billing. Okay. Good care, we need great caregivers who are reliable, who show up on time. Good communication, when our caregiver isn't reliable and doesn't show up on time, is the office communicating with me? Do they have a process for a backup? How are they helping me through that situation? Correct billing. I don't know how the publicly funded billing works. I know it's very complex, but in private pay, it should be very simple, especially if you're using a system that provides for clock in and clock out service. But it is extremely important that the billing is correct. So make sure that you have somebody communicating with those caregivers, making sure that those shifts are being billed accordingly and nobody is charging for time that they were not there for. Because that's such an easy way to erode trust in a relationship, is for someone to feel like you're trying to charge me for time that I didn't have care. And it could be the most honest mistake, but it can often be perceived differently by the client. So, just something to think of to stay on top of that. The other thing I would say for making a client, you got the client, let's make them a happy client, is really focusing on that first week of care. Okay, that first week is so critical. If you've been in this business a while, you probably know that the majority of issues where you might lose a client are going to happen either when the case starts, there's a change in the caregiver, or a significant change in the client's needs that causes stress on the caregiver and the situation. So when the case is starting, we need to make sure we manage expectations. And I mean something as simple as, If the caregiver tells you they're getting there at 10 a.m. on the first day, tell the family they'll be there between 10 and 10:30. Why? Because if you tell them 10 and the caregiver arrives at 10:15, you're already starting off on the caregiver being late. It's only 15 minutes. It should not be a big deal, but you didn't meet the expectation that you set. If you say between 10 and 10:30 and they show up at 10:15, perfect, easy goes. So just little things to just manage expectations. You know, we are not perfect people. This is a business where people are traveling. They might hit traffic. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. It's okay to say to a family, I don't have an exact time, but they will arrive between 10 and 10:30 most likely. Okay, you've set the expectation. Follow up and follow through. And over communicate week one. So let's talk a little bit about those. We used to always call a caregiver the day of their first case. Typically we'd call them the day before and confirm that they're all set, right? But we would always call them the day of their first case, even if we spoke to them just 24 hours earlier. An hour before their shift, let's say, call them. Are you ready to go? Do you have everything you need? You have the address, you know how to get there. If you have any issues when you're on your way, please call me and let me know. And it can seem like a little bit of overkill, but I can't tell you how many times it saved me. Just knowing ahead of time that a caregiver might be running behind, or they misplaced the address and I need to resend it to them, or, you know, potentially the caregiver isn't going anymore. And if your caregiver doesn't show up on the first day of the case, that is a lot of trust loss, especially if you don't know about it ahead of time, right? Things are going to happen in home care. Problems are going to come up. You need to know about them before your client knows about them. That's really the key, especially in that first week. And that's part of over communicating the week one. So we used to call a caregiver every single day of week one. How's it going? What's going on? How's everything with the family? Do they seem happy? Is there anything you need? We wouldn't bother the family every single day, but we would maybe send an email every other day, checked in, things are going well. You could even do it just once a week as long as everything's going okay. But if things aren't going okay, you know about it and you can solve it. You can get ahead of the issue before the family comes and tells you there's a problem, because that's when you start to not look as valuable or as involved in the case if they know about things before you do, right? Because that's really your role, is to help manage the care. And then a part of delivering winning customer service is creating that culture of caring and putting little processes in place to constantly be giving excellent customer service. So these are some of the things that I've seen agencies implement, that I've done personally, that have worked for us. When you visit clients, leave a little physical card if the family lives there. If the family doesn't live there, send them a follow-up email to let them know you visited. Can be super short. Saw mom today. She was in quite the mood, but I said hello anyway. You know, whatever it is, it just helps the family know that you're involved. Regular client newsletters are always a big hit. You know, it's something you do on a repeatable basis, maybe once a month. You send it out by e-blast or with the invoice. And you can ask them to nominate their caregiver for caregiver of the month or something like that. That gives the family a way to interact with you and tell you what a great job their caregiver is doing for them. Birthdays and anniversaries, we always acknowledged in private pay. We would send flowers on every client's birthday, easily tracked in ClearCare, sent them through Amazon, $35, free shipping. Can't tell you how many pictures of happy, smiling seniors I got back who just loved that we remembered their birthday. $35, 50 clients, you're spending $1,700 a year approximately. It's not a huge expense in private pay to take on to do something like that. And it means a lot to your clients. And anniversaries, we actually used to always send them a card on their anniversary, handwritten. Thank you. Mom has been a client for a year now. You know, thank you so much for trusting in our care and working with us. Holiday gifts or cards, a lot of people do this. If you're sending a holiday card, please personalize it with your team pictures or something, not just a generic card, so that they can get to know you. And of course, you can always make it non-denominational or seasonal to make sure everyone is included. All right, so we took our prospect, we got them to be a client. We have our client, we stayed on top of the case the first week, the caregiver, they love her. We're doing all these great little things to help them understand that we're still a part of the case and that we're caring for them and we're providing that extra level of service. Now, how do we get the 5-star review? And I know before me, there was a presentation on social media for caregiving. And I can't tell you how many clients we got from building our online reputation with Google reviews. It was such a great tool because once you have them, you can send them to everybody, right? We would have a potential client call us and they might say, oh, your rate is a little bit higher. And we would say, you know what? I'm going to send you our Google reviews. Take a look. Well, when they see that you have a 5-star Google review rating and you have 30 something reviews and a lot of them are new and they're very personalized and they can read all those great stories about families that you've helped, you've sold them because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody to provide great care. So how do you get the good reviews? It's not easy, I'll tell you. It is not easy, particularly because it involves technology and it involves time, right? So two things that not everybody has a lot of time for. But you need to have some type of a review process. So for us, what we did is when a client would end, we used ClearCare. So I'm going to use a ClearCare term. We would tag the client if they were happy with our services and they ended for some reason. We would tag them to follow up with them for a review. And then after about a week went by, we would reach out to them. Now, I do want to preface this. If a family member has died, always you need to be obviously respectful of that situation. We as an agency would donate in honor of any clients we had that passed away. We would donate to the cause that they listed. So that was always a great way for us to make the call, let the family know we made the donation. It was an honor to have helped your loved one. And by the way, I'm just going to send you an email when you have time and, please just take a chance to review our services. It means a lot to us. And most people, it can be a little uncomfortable. Most people are really happy to do it because if you really have done a great job for that loved one, they want to tell people. They do because it's hard. We know it's hard. If you've ever looked for care for your parents, for your husband or wife or anybody in your family, it is incredibly stressful time in your life. And if a company has come in and taken some of that stress away and helped ease that pain and suffering for your loved one, you want them to do well. You want other people to know what a great business they are. So ask that person for that review. Email them, call them. We used to call them, and then we used to email them with instructions on how to do the review. Google, Yelp, Facebook, all these types of reviews help. My personal favorite is Google, just because when someone Googles your business, the reviews come up right there. So that's, often the first thing they see. And if they don't do it that first week, set a reminder a month out. Don't let it just go. Don't say, oh, okay, they're never going to do the review. Call them in a month. And by the way, a lot of times they appreciate you checking in. How's everything going since your husband passed or your wife passed? How are you doing? Is everything okay? Tell me a little bit. So every now and then you'll get a client from that follow-up call because you'll find out that unfortunately the spouse is not okay and they've been meaning to call you, but they haven't. But it is okay to ask for that review. And, I have an example here of an agency. This could be your agency. But these types of reviews that are very personalized, that have a lot of information about, the mom's situation or the loved one's situation and the caregiver. Oh, I think we're okay. Are going to be the most impactful for your clients. And so, like I said, once you have it, once you've built up your reviews, even if you have 5 good reviews, 10 good reviews, add it to your email signature. Check out our Google reviews. We have a 4.8 rating. Add it to your marketing materials. Make it something that you talk about with other potential clients because it is something that they can go on, they can verify. It's independent, right? Your agency isn't able to control these reviews and only put up good ones. So it does make a difference to people. All right. So just to bring it back in summary and then we'll leave a little bit of time for questions. So home care fundamentals, remember people plus process equals profit. Work a little bit on your value proposition, understanding does your price, service, and warranty match. This is always a good exercise if you're looking to raise your rates, or you're looking at, are we charging competitively to the market? You know, if you're charging higher or lower than the market, why? What about your service and warranty is different than what other people are doing? And then, you know, just remember, it's been a tough year. There's a lot going on. It's the little things. We always like to say, just bring a little joy to each day if you can. And if you can't, hopefully one of your team members does and kind of raises your spirits that day. And that's part of the aspect of being part of a great team in home care, is you're going to have tough days, you're going to have tough weeks. But if together you can continue, you can move forward, you can provide a really great service for people, take care of great caregivers, make great jobs for everyone. And I'm very excited for this industry going forward. I know there's a lot of challenges, but I also know that we are only going to be more and more needed as our population continues to age. And we look forward to solving those problems in new and different ways. And I'm excited to be a part of that. And thank you again for joining. And I guess we'll take some questions now.
Great. Thank you so much, Colleen. That was incredibly helpful, and you're a fantastic speaker. So it was just a joy to listen to you. I think those are some really great processes. I think I'd like to encourage everybody to add questions to the chat. But while we're waiting, I'm going to kick us off with one that I thought might really resonate with a lot of people on this call, which is that a lot of administrators are, you know, in smaller cooperatives, they're really stretched thin. And you talked about this. Every home care agency, you know, to some degree is wearing multiple hats and running around trying to manage all of these different things. So I guess, you know, if you had to think about a lot of these recommendations and processes that you talked about, what's kind of like the, you know, the bare minimum, if you have to really focus in on, say, like 3 things that you can really, you know, implement to make a big difference in terms of customer service, what would be those 3 things that you would recommend for the really stretched thin administrator?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would like to say is everyone is stretched thin in home care, particularly potentially right now. The processes, I do believe, set you free from being stretched thin. So I know it takes time initially to look at your business and what's not working and set up those processes. But the goal of the processes is to set you free. So you're not frantically going here, going there. Wait, did we do a newsletter this month? Did we do, you know, it's about kind of making those processes and designating who's going to do them. That should help you not be as stretched. Now, that being said, I've sat in home care and there are days where you literally just cannot do anything but answer that phone, right? It just doesn't stop ringing, or you just constantly have one issue after the other. So if you don't have time to send flowers or send a card or do these things, you have to make time for the core fundamentals of your business. You have to make time to take care of your people, to provide good care, to have good communication, and to bill and pay correctly. I mean, that's the basics. And that takes a lot. That's easier said than done, right? From an outsider's perspective, it's easy. From being in home care, you know it's not. But take time for the core first. Those extra things can come as you develop your business and as you move forward. But sending out a client newsletter or birthday flowers is not going to do anything for your business if you are not staffing cases that are open, because that's the basic thing that they're looking for, right? If you can't provide a caregiver for that case, then the rest doesn't matter. So you do have to focus on the basics first. But also remember that spending a little bit of time when you're stretched thin can sometimes set you free from being so stretched thin in the future.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And I think this question is similar, but I want to ask it anyways, just in case, it inspires anything else. So the question is, what advice you might have for a small group of caregivers interested in creating a cooperative for the first time. How have these groups approached the question of customer service administration? Sort of, and the person notes, initially, I'm assuming they won't have any money to pay an office manager, customer support person. So do you work with these small co-ops interested in providing elder care and home care? So I guess really just going to, like, if you haven't even really started yet, you're really just at the point of,
Right.
forming and thinking, and you don't have any of these formal systems in place. Again, what might you recommend there? And I think, again, it's similar, but maybe slightly different.
I mean, I think no matter how small your cooperative or business is you need to treat it like it's a bigger business and look at it and say, okay, we're 5 caregivers starting a cooperative, right? What's our value proposition when a client calls us? You have a lot going for you, because as 5 caregivers, you can lean on each other. You say, we're a caregiving team, right? We have built-in backups. We ourselves know what the care, what level of care takes. And, you have a lot to play with and build that value proposition just even by being a small team. That doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but you do still need to have a process. I mean, you still need to have a phone number that people are calling. And if that phone number is being directed to Sally's cell phone and Sally can't answer it, what's happening, right? There's lots of great, systems out there for small businesses that are not super expensive, but that can help you say, okay, if person A doesn't answer the phone call gets directed to person B and then person C until someone answers. So you still have to have those fundamentals even when you're small or starting, and every great agency starts small, right? I mean, when my father started this business, I was in, middle school, and when I was in high school, I was driving caregivers to cases. Like, there weren't other people, right? My father was on call 24/7 for 7 years. That is how it is in this business, but you still have to have the processes and still look at yourself and make sure that you're operating as a business that can get to the next level, that you're not staying where you are.
That makes a lot of sense. So one really quick one, if you can, because I know we're sort of at time now, but there was another question as to whether you have any thoughts on different service tiers with different rates. So maybe if you could just talk about that for 30 seconds.
Providing different rates for different services.
Different service tiers with different rates. Yeah. You kind of talked a little bit about a range.
I can answer it. It's a little bit of a complex answer. I am not a fan, as I said during the presentation, of a set rate for everybody. The reason being is I believe that different cases, you need to pay caregivers different amounts. And based on what you have to pay the caregiver, you need to charge the client something in order to make sure that you're profitable. A lot of agencies do a set rate and they pay caregivers different amounts based on different cases, and they think it will even out in the end, but it doesn't always even out. And if you're not tracking that, that can be difficult. We personally at our agency, we had a range and we customized every single rate. Every client rate was different. There weren't tiers. It wasn't like 1, 2, or 3, you're in this service level. It was just our rate range is between, let's say, 24 and 30. And we're going to come out, meet with you personally, and then tell you what the rate would be. Now, that takes some finesse, that takes some getting to know the business, understanding your numbers to get there. So in the meantime, I think tiers is a good step forward to not having just a flat rate. So maybe you do a tier of a single person, maybe tier 2 is a couple care or something like that. And you can differentiate that. I know some people are fans of different rates on weekends, which are really tough to staff. I think that's fine too, as long as you can back it up to the family member with a reason, which most people understand. If you say, a lot of caregivers don't want to work on the weekends, so we have to charge you a higher rate on the weekends. Okay. That's pretty easily explainable. So yeah, I'm a big fan of rate ranges, tiers, things that allow you to customize, because if you're not charging the right amount, you're not paying the right amount, you can't provide great care. So it is a piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much. I do want to acknowledge there is at least one other question that came through the chat. So Colleen, if you're able to respond to it, maybe in chat.
No
That
problem.
would be great. Otherwise, there's been lots of thank yous and very helpful information, lots of positive comments. And I certainly want to echo that. What a wonderful presentation. And we really appreciate you being here with us today.